Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Tom Moran with the All Hazards Consortium, and excited to have you on track 3 of day 3. Let me close my blinds here just a second. That'll be better. Really excited about today's track. This is our GIS focused track here. So we have a number of things going on today during our track. So today, we'll run from 12:30 with a couple of breaks through about 6 o'clock. Everything is being recorded. If you want to change tracks at any time, we'll put the information up. You can go to a page and change tracks back and forth. Everything's being recorded. It'll be offered following. You'll get an offer to participate in the All Access Pass. What is that? All the sessions are recorded. So what we want to do is to try to make this not a one and done kind of thing, right? So what the private sector did in committee was they said, let's put together a package of digital information. So it'll be made available to everybody if you want to opt in for it. It'll be all of the videos for all of the sessions, all 3 days, edited, of course. So you can watch all the video, the PowerPoint presentation, the whole thing. I like to listen to things in my car, in my home. So we'll also make audio files available for you as well as part of that package. The third thing is we're going to transcribe every session and we'll edit that. So why is that important? Well, a lot of people do research, provide consulting. They want to go back and get information from one of the talks in more detail. So we thought having something in your hands, paper you can hold and touch would be really good. Everybody thought that was a great idea. And then the last part of the All Access Pass is going to be kind of cliff notes from each of the session from the speakers, right? If you don't want to take notes during the sessions, we summarize that. You'll get that as part of the All Access Pass that you can use. So those 4 things, the video, the audio, the transcripts, and the speaker notes will be made available to you. So with the time we all invest, we figured we got well over 1,000 man hours, woman hours, labor hours, whatever's the right way to say that, invested in this. So for me to get this kind of information, I would be on airplanes and hotels all over the country spending thousands of dollars. So we wanted to kind of put something together in a cost-effective way, very inexpensive, for you to get and keep it and use it in your planning going forward, or your research, or your consulting, or whatever you do to have. So it's at AHC, we'll put it in the chat, ahc2021.com. So let's jump into our first session. I'm going to introduce Carrie Hicks. Carrie, I'll let you give folks a little bit of your background. Carrie is the chair of our GIS committee within the SISE. She works with Duke Energy. And so, Carrie, I'll stop sharing. Hang on one second. There's one thing I wanted to mention here. Here we go. Can you see my screen? So Carrie's going to be our moderator for the whole track. So I'm really glad to have her on board. So Carrie, I'll turn it back over to you. I'll stop sharing and you got the mic.
Thank you, Tom. So thanks for joining the Track 3 GIS track today. I kind of wanted to go back in time a little bit and tell the story of how we got here before introducing Dave. So a couple years ago, I was sort of voluntold to join in on these SISE calls every Friday. This was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And it was a very sort of serendipitous time for that to happen, because at that time I started personally getting involved in a lot of storm response efforts. We had Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Matthew, Hurricane Michael, Hurricane Florence. And we started to really come upon a lot of GIS related issues, both in the SISE and at Duke Energy as well. And after we started sort of chewing on these issues for a while, things like data sharing challenges, ensuring data reliability, we decided that it made the most sense to create a GIS committee within the SISE. So we landed on that a couple of years ago. And the first objective of the GIS committee was to work through these operational readiness levels, which we will be talking about a lot today. And we've worked on a lot of other stuff too. We've compiled really great lists of reliable data sets. We have coordinated during major response events, but you're going to be hearing a lot about ORL levels today. And I'm going to go ahead and turn that over to Dave, who's going to be introducing that concept for you all. So Dave, take it away.
Thanks, Carrie. Sorry, I had to just find the right button to press to turn the camera on. I appreciate that introduction, and we are going to talk about ORL levels. We're going to talk about real-time data sharing, how you can share your data layers in real time across any device. I first wanted to give you just a little bit of background on myself. Like Carrie, I got involved in the All Hazards Consortium and the SISE probably about 6 years ago, working with Tom, and the real challenge was, boy, how can we get data out and really share it? And then we started evolving into trusted data layers and things like that. So my background goes back to some work at NASA that I did. I used to work there and at Goddard Space Flight Center, and then I helped TV weather graphics company design some of their weather graphic systems for use on air. So I traveled around the country a lot, training broadcast meteorologists in how to use computers and weather forecasting, how to use it to put their shows together and all that stuff. And then I was offered the opportunity to be on the air myself. So I was on the air at NBC4 in Washington, D.C. as a broadcast meteorologist for about 10 years through the 90s. And that was a time of real rapid growth of, about 1994, 95. This thing called the internet formed and really got out to a lot of people. And so I started working with NASA and actually won a little bit of money to put together the nation's very first TV weather website in the nation, WeatherNet 4. And so that was a lot of fun. But then when we got towards 2000, I really turned my attention to how can we get more data, science data, into decision-making environments. So I left NBC and started Storm Center Communications, and from then on, it's been a real enjoyable ride for putting more science data to work. We're involved in deep science stuff with machine learning and automated intelligence, and then we went ahead and started focusing on the real issue of how can one system access data and share that data with other systems across a company or across a federal agency or state agencies. And so that's where we really dug in because there was no solution to do that. So we actually proposed to the federal government's Small Business Innovation Research Program, SBIR, and we propose to develop something that's never been developed before. And that is to create that ability to do data sharing in a secure environment across desktops, across devices, across mobile devices. And so we spent about 6 years working on that challenge, evolving it, and doing it under federal government advanced research funding. And so I want to talk a little bit about that, sort of bring you up to speed. And then by the time this session is over, we're actually going to be sharing data with you live on your computers. So get ready to open up a new tab later on, and I'll be sharing some information with you in a secure environment, and then moving your map around as well. So you can just get a taste to see how GeoCollaborate works. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and pull that up here. There we go. And I'm going to play this presentation as well. So this is really a session on how to securely collaborate your data with the SISE and do it in an on-off data sharing sort of way. So I'm just going to go through some of these slides pretty quickly. The sharing of trusted data and information is critical. It's crucial. It's been talked about for decades. It's also been impossible. And when I say that, I don't say that lightly because it's just been way too complicated to make it happen and to make anybody satisfied that it's done in a secure way. So we have this is the good news. We have more data available to us today than at any other time. That's great news. We have satellite data, we have in situ observations, we have drone data, we have all sorts of information that we can share, whether it's social media based or anything like that. Now, here's the bad news. We have more data available to us today than at any other time. So it really calls into question the ability for us to decipher that information, to go through and apply perhaps our own reasoning, our own relationships that the SISE has brought up and the All Hazards Consortium has brought up for many years. It's that relationship building that builds that trust. And when you have that trust going on, you're going to trust the information that that person shares with you. Well, when you have more data available to you than at any other time, you have to start putting together some things like machine learning and automated intelligence so it can sift through that information and provide you with the answers that you want. So I'm going to describe GeoCollaborate and demonstrate some cross-platform data sharing. So when I mentioned the SBIR program within the federal government, SBIR is really a $4 billion seed fund for high growth startups and technologies where most venture capitalists and investors won't invest in that because it's just too iffy of a research project. But what it really does is it advances the ability of the federal government to access and share data and information. And so we've gone through the SBIR program in phase 1, phase 2, phase 2E, which is extended, and now we're phase 3. Phase 3 really enables any federal agency to immediately contract with us to implement GeoCollaborate. So once you get to phase 3, the contracting stuff really becomes easy, but you still have to talk to agencies and organizations about the benefits of data sharing. And so we currently now are working with NOAA, DHS, CISA, the Census Bureau, and more recently too, the state of Florida. And so I want to show you how screen sharing or information sharing is kind of being done today or been done in the past, where you have a whole bunch of websites that you open up and many briefings look like this. You might have, 50 or 75 or 100 tabs open in your browser and you just page through those tabs. Well, you can think of GeoCollaborate as reaching into each one of these sites with trusted information to share and pulling out the data from those sites and pulling it into a map environment. And that map environment, that web map environment, can be shared in real time across any platform. So what you see here on the right-hand side, these blue dots are COVID-19 counts from each state, from the Johns Hopkins University web service. The red states might be states that declared states of emergency. The orange dots that you see in California here and also in Utah and Oklahoma and Texas, they're real-time earthquake notifications from the USGS. They're updated every minute and they come in through an ATOM and RSS service. And then these dots, these green dots in Pennsylvania, were actually open rest stops that Pennsylvania opened up during the initial COVID-19 outbreak. They initially closed them all, then they opened them back up. This was a way for us to communicate across the country and to transportation organizations what rest stops were open. And so from a user interface perspective, this is what GeoCollaborate looks like. You have a leader that you log on with credentials in the upper left-hand corner. You have followers, an unlimited number of followers that can connect through a URL and turn GeoCollaborate on. Then all of a sudden they are following the leader's session in real time. So when you think of screen sharing like we're doing right now, this is sort of like screen sharing on steroids, where we're actually sharing data services into your device and then moving the map around in real time. So a briefer can brief in real time, or if you use the dashboard, which is down below, you can turn on and off the data layers that the leader wants to share with you simply through an on-off switch. That's where we got the term on-off data sharing. As long as you want to share your data, you can turn it on. And when you want to stop sharing it, you can turn it off. And then it will disappear from all the followers' screens when you want to stop sharing it. And so from a 30,000 foot perspective, this is what GeoCollaborate looks like. You have trusted data sources out here on the internet. It could be from the cloud. It could be from a hub. It could be from ArcGIS Online. It could be a KML. It could be machine learning or automated intelligence that you might be generating internally at your organization. And you're making that service available for a limited period of time where you want to share it across platforms. So a leader shares it, and all of a sudden, any device that's connected, it can be in an emergency operations center on a big screen, could be on a tablet, could be on a phone. All these devices will begin to follow in real time and get those data sets that the leader or subject matter expert you can think of is sharing, any data sets that they're sharing. And so we're actually funded under a couple contracts with NOAA. One is their JPSS program, and we're funded under their fire and smoke initiative and their river ice and flooding initiative. So what we're doing under those initiatives is we're putting more NOAA satellite data, NASA satellite data, and other data together to deliver into decision-making environments that deal with fire and smoke. So wildfires, controlled burns, prescribed burns, things like that, where we can see that smoke coming up from satellite, and then we can start to activate the HER smoke model to do smoke forecasts and see where that smoke is going to be going either locally or across the country. On the right-hand side of your screen is the River Ice and Flooding Initiative, where we're taking satellite data and we can now determine from satellites what rivers are flooding due to ice jams, what rivers are flooding due to heavy rain. So that's now leading us into areas of using GeoCollaborate to identify areas of inundation that could impede the traffic flow of response vehicles or anyone. And we're really putting that NOAA data to work into these decision-making environments. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you see an example of GeoCollaborate in the wildfire situation that we had last, well, most of 2020 in California, where you see these dots. These dots are EPA air quality sensors combined with the high-resolution rapid refresh smoke model from NOAA. At this point, it was an experimental model, but now it's been transitioned into operations. You can see the concentration of smoke all up and down the California coastline, and then these verification EPA air quality sensors that have been turned different colors: red, purple, dark red. That's all very bad air quality. You need a mask to be outside to be able to breathe correctly. And those folks with respiratory problems or young kids with developing lungs should not be out in this type of situation. On the right-hand side, you see anywhere in these, you have to look a little bit closer on the river here, anywhere you see red and orange and yellow is areas where it's flooded. It shouldn't be flooded, but it is. So we can now take satellite data and turn that into inundation visualizations, and that can be shared out through GeoCollaborate. These are all data sets that we're looking to get into the SISE, so the SISE can then distribute them in a secure fashion. But there are also data sets that are open to the public, such as these, and these can be shared in multiple ways. There's also a geospatial message that's been issued through GeoCollaborate that could communicate to anybody in this purple area that there's a flood coming or historic flooding is coming over the next week or so. So this picture, I think Tom showed this at the beginning of the Resilience Exchange Summit, something like this, where you have different layers of data. This is exactly how GeoCollaborate works. So you have trusted layers from the SISE, you have trusted layers from your organization, trusted layers from federal resources or state resources. More and more organizations are putting their data together in this layered fashion, serving as web services or feature services, if you will. And more states are setting up Esri hubs. All that is great work when it comes to working with your GIS layers. Any drone data providers, we can bring that data in, automated intelligence, machine learning. And the goal is to sign what Carrie mentioned at the beginning of this, ORLs. We'll be talking about this later as well. Operational readiness levels. So you know you can trust the data that you're accessing to use for improved situational awareness and decision making. And so this is an example. I just wanted to go through a couple of examples of how GeoCollaborate was used recently. This is an example, the Hurricane Research Division, those guys that fly through the hurricanes that gather this data that's so critical to numerical weather prediction and weather forecasting. They fly through these category 1 through category 5 hurricanes and gather data. Well, the Hurricane Research Division is now using GeoCollaborate, putting it on their airplanes so they can share data between the airplanes and engage the scientists on the ground to find out what parts of the storm they should fly through. This is an example of how they identified a flight pattern that they wanted to use using GeoCollaborate. And the bottom screen is actually the Hurricane Research Division showing their flight plan. And then what's in white here is the actual official NOAA flight plan that the P3 flew through Hurricane Laura. And this was a devastating storm, obviously, that landed in the southwest coast of Louisiana. So here's an example. On the left-hand side, you see the leader using GeoCollaborate, showing the satellite picture here, and then the follower following in real time with the same satellite image. And the followers don't have to know where to go get the data. They don't have to know what ORL it is. They don't have to know any of that. They're getting it automatically from the leader, that subject matter expert, sharing the data. This is an example of our support to the California Civil Air Patrol and the California National Guard, where we brought in 4 or 5 different data sets. Here's an example, and I'll just go through this really quickly. This in red are FAA flight restrictions. So this data set comes from the FAA in real time. So they closed off the flight areas in these red boxes, which means that you had to fly above 12,500 feet. These yellow boxes that you see are individual task orders that were issued by the California National Guard to take images of damage for damage assessment. These are all areas where structures exist and critical infrastructure exists. And the California National Guard says, Civil Air Patrol, we need you to image in these areas. So they were using GeoCollaborate so they could see the flight restrictions, where their task orders were to image, and then superimposed here underneath, it's tough to see, is the fire perimeter from the Forest Service. You can see that outlined here. This is the fire perimeter from the U.S. Forest Service, updated every 24 hours. That was coming in live from the Forest Service. And then all of these colors that you see here, the purples, the reds, the yellows, is output from the HRRR smoke model. So this is a forecast of where that smoke is going to be. And if you can see now, the smoke is blowing towards the east. So it exposed some of these task order areas for imaging, and the Civil Air Patrol was able to swoop down in the plane at 12,000 feet and take images of these boxes. And then when the wind shifted, they got out of there because they were able to look at the smoke model and how that smoke was moving. So this is exactly how it worked. The Civil Air Patrol said, we need access to the HRRR smoke model. They contacted NOAA in Boulder. Boulder contacted the JPSS program. The JPSS program activated us using GeoCollaborate. And within 2 days, we were not only training the Civil Air Patrol how to use the HRRR smoke model, but we had stood up an instance of GeoCollaborate and a real-time data sharing environment. 2.5 days later, they adopted GeoCollaborate as an operational support technology for their wildfires. So we were connecting decision makers rapidly on any device. We can connect anyone regardless of any GIS product used. So if they weren't Esri users, it's okay. They could just connect to the URL and they could follow this collaboration session in real time. And the folks at the National Guard contacted us and said, hey, we produced those yellow boxes. It's great to see how they were used operationally, because they never see a picture like this put together. And I have to take my hat off to Persia and the folks down in North Carolina. This was when we used GeoCollaborate. We use it all the time in the All Hazards Consortium and the SISE. This was back on September 7th of 2018. This was Hurricane Florence. And look where Hurricane Florence was, all the way out in the ocean out here. And because of the forecast, North Carolina issued a state of emergency before anybody else issued a state of emergency. They had a 7-day notice when they issued a state of emergency to prepare for this storm. And that was just incredible that they took that initiative all the way at the end of these probabilities here, 7 days out. They issued this state of emergency, and then the state turned red, and we were able to help with movement of fleet utility vehicles across the states. And this is an example of how the SISE all hazards used, GeoCollaborate. We showed the wind forecast, tropical storm arrival wind forecast. These green states are pass-through states. The red states are states that declared states of emergency. The purple states are states of emergency and waivers declared by the Federal Motor Carrier Services Administration, allowing trucks to drive longer, carry heavier loads like bottled water, which they need to do when they're taking these supplies into these areas. So that was great. I'm going to blow by this. There's a YouTube video that you can click on. We can share in the chat for you to look at how we did support for the California National Guard. And so now what I want to do is take you down into a real-time data sharing session. So this is where it gets kind of fun. We're going to play a little bit. I want you to see how we're going to interact with data sets in real time. So on the left-hand side of my screen, I have the leader. I've logged in as a leader into the Fleet Response Working Group instance. On the right-hand side is a follower. And I'd love for you to follow along with me. And so in the chat, Tom, I think you can say, I can't see the chat while I'm doing my screen share, but if you share the follow address, then and you look in the chat, everyone can click on that follow link.
Which link, Dave? Sorry.
It's the FRWG and then the /follow.
Oh, okay. Stand by.
Yeah. So once Tom shares that into the chat, then you can click on that link and it will bring up the follower for GeoCollaborate. I'm still going to share my screen showing the leader on the left and the follower on the right. But Tom, I guess I can't see the chat pop up. I guess
give me 1 second, Dave. Here I'm.
Yeah, no worries.
I got a little window. Too many windows here. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. No worries at all. So when that address pops up, it'll be HTTPS :
Okay.
//
Here we go.
There you go. So okay. So that address that Tom just shared is oh, there, I can bring it up. So go ahead and click on that that follow address. What you should see is a map that loads up. This is a Esri JavaScript map that loads up, and you can move around that map as much as you want. Nothing's loaded up or anything like that. You can move around it. But once you turn GeoCollaborate on, and that's what I'm going to ask you to do, turn GeoCollaborate on, and I'm going to do it on the screen share here. Once you turn it on, your follower is going to match my leader base map. And you're going to get all the data sets that I have activated in this real-time collaboration session. So as you're following along, we can zoom down into Southern California. And as I'm zooming down into the leader, you can see the follower is actually following in real time. Now, to prove that this isn't screen sharing, if you have loaded up the follower and you're following me in your instance, you can click down here on these data sets. You can click on them and inquire about what these data sets mean. There's a big excessive rainfall. Obviously, there's a huge moisture plume. We call it an atmospheric river that's coming from the Pacific right into California, creating snowfall totals of 5 to 8 feet of snow in the higher elevations right now. There are mud flows happening in the burn scar areas where debris and mud flows are occurring. And there's just anywhere from 5 to 8 inches, even more of rain falling. So it's just terrible time in California right now. I can dive in even closer and you will follow me in real time. And you're seeing the real-time weather radar data. I can turn that radar data off. It will go off in your instance. Now you can see the outlook over the next 24 hours for heavy rain. You can click on that yourself, either as a follower, and I can click on it as a leader. And now you're following. So this is what I'm talking about with on-off data sharing. And so this on-off data sharing means that as a leader, I'm opening my menu, I'm going to the data sets that I've shared, and I'm turning them on or off. if I turn off the National Weather Service watches, warnings, and advisories, they go on to your instance in real time. So think about what's happening here. I'm a subject matter expert. I have data sets I want to share. I'm briefing my higher ups or others in my organization or in adjacent states. We immediately set up a real-time collaboration and data sharing session. And now states can share information freely. You can share information between states and federal agencies could take the lead and share data back that they have that they might want to share with you. And so the whole idea of the SISE Esri hub that's being stood up is to allow you to put sensitive data into that hub, and it only can be shared with those members that are part of the SISE and that sensitive information sharing environment. So as I back out here, I just want to, and you can see all the active weather happening in California, but as I back out here to see the whole country, you can see all the advisories and things like that that are going on around the country as well. And again, I'm just going to do one other thing here. I'm going to issue a geospatial message. I'm going to go into my menu. I'm going to go to freehand polygon. I'm going to draw a message that says there is flooding happening right here now. Need assistance. And then Dave, and then it could be a number, so you know who to call. And I put too many O's in flooding. I'm going to draw this graphic, and I'm going to draw it a larger area that would be normal, because you'll probably dive into the building resolution area. So I just drew this green polygon, and I'm going to zoom into this green polygon. I could have made it red. I could have made it any color. And now I'll turn off the watches, warnings, and advisories from the National Weather Service so you can just see that area. And then I'll turn off the excessive rainfall forecast so you can just see that green polygon right here. So you can now click on that green polygon. What you see when you click on that green polygon is the geospatial message that I just issued that will go across all devices, all platforms, and it's a way in which you can now coordinate the movement and mustering, if you will, of certain organizations or people that you want to gather together. If I zoom real close, like down into Thousand Oaks here, then you'll follow me. And here's something else. On the left-hand side, where I'm going to move this key points in the follower, you can deploy this menu and change your base map at the same time. So you can change your base map to the satellite base map, and your base map will now match mine. So if we go into an area with buildings or houses or things like that to do any sort of damage assessment, those buildings will also get into higher resolution. So now you could issue a geospatial message that says, hey, I want to meet in this corner of a building, in this location here, and you can get real details in. So there are other services that are available that can be pulled into GeoCollaborate, like social media services, people that provide these at a subscription level. So if you're subscribing to these data sets, you can pull those data sets in so it can be part of a data sharing environment. So it looks like now we're at about 101. I wanted to open it up, Tom, I guess, for questions and answers, but I'll just keep my screen being shared.
I got one question about how do you use this? So what Dave just demonstrated is how the multi-state fleet response working group coordinates fleet movement during a disaster. So in that scenario, we have, for example, electric sector mutual assistance crews moving all over the place. So how do you coordinate 25 states, right? And utilities that are moving, either to the southeast or the northeast. And we've been using this tool since really 2016. So if you have customers or internally to your organization if you have a need to coordinate a bunch of people at a bunch of different companies using a bunch of different systems, this is a very simple solution, right? We send out a link. The executives didn't want to log in. They just want a link and they want to see. They just want to see. They don't want to share. They just want to consume the information. We actually heard about this capability from Maryland Emergency Management Agency that knew about it. I don't know, I guess, Dave, you had talked to MEMA at some point. They referred Dave to us, and we tested it during a winter storm in 2016, and it was beautiful. And of course, it's improved quite a bit then, but we use it for coordinating a bunch of people, multiple states, companies, so forth. But then it also had the additional ability for us to share information in a secure environment where I can post up, let you see my data, but not take possession of it for an hour or 2 or 3 and then turn it off, right? A really unique capability for on-demand data sharing, right? If it's permanent, you can nail it down. You don't need that. You can connect your Esri systems and things like that. But when it has to be dynamic in a dynamic environment, this type of technology is really is what we use to fit the bill. Let me check our other questions. Dave, hang on one second here. Pull it up.
And Tom, while you're doing that, I just pulled up the dashboard on the right-hand side. The dashboard does not follow the leader in real time, but it does stage all of the data sets that are available that the leader has shared. So if I pull that to widen it out a little bit, this makes it easy for you to turn on and off data sets themselves. So if you turn on the excessive rainfall outlook, you can zoom out yourself and see what the leader is following. And you can also change your base map as well to satellite here. So so when you do that, essentially you have total control of the map itself and what data sets you want to look at. And then the key points that show up are key points that the Fleet Response Working Group, the SISE, or if you're using GeoCollaborate as a leader, your messages to your own organization can be updated here. This is like a real-time updated message board, if you will, that's one way that you can say the next update is here. The next, we're going to have another social media update in at 4 o'clock, or the next briefing is going to happen at this time. So if you wanted to turn on the weather radar data, you could turn on weather radar data from this dashboard and also see how the rain is falling and all that sort of stuff.
So the other thing too, I wanted to, I put in the chat just the general link. You can go there and see the dashboard or join a session when we light one up. So what's the use case, right? What is this tied to? So this is around sharing information, public and sensitive, right? Right now what's up there is public. If you go to there and select dashboard, that information is public. We get it from a number of sources, but it's ranked. And what does that mean? Every set of data we run through the operational readiness level standard, which was developed with a partnership between the consortium and the ESIP Federation. Karen Moe, I see, is on the session. Dave's part of that. And they worked off a NASA model. That was kind of a 9-step. We reduced it down to 4. So everything you see in here has been gone through the ranking system, which you'll hear about in our next session, how we use it with an ORL rating. Why is that important? Because decision makers don't want to wonder, is that data some kid pulled off a website, or is that data that's actually gone through the garden and been rated and ranked? Right. So if it's a 1 or a 2, you can make a decision on it without validating once you understand. So that was the use cases. Decision makers needed a quick way to share information, no login, just put it out there for public information. And then as we have sensitive information that can be shared, this allows us to do that, but only for a period of time, and we don't store it. So we've had a number of people post up information there. States put up declarations and waivers and links like that. We have other companies putting up other information. But anyway, the whole point was, this is how within the Fleet Response Working Group, how they coordinate hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people across half the country during a disaster, which is quite often. We have wildfires, we have tornadoes and floods, winter storms, hurricanes, is kind of, but you got to synchronize information in order to synchronize operations. So that's the purpose behind the use case of how we use this. Go ahead,
And
Dave.
Tom, also, I just wanted to mention too that that now the National Weather Service is starting to use GeoCollaborate to do tabletop exercises with states. So out of the National Water Center in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, they're starting to do some exercises that are going to happen next month with, for example, like the state of Rhode Island, where they're going to be bringing in all their emergency operations crew, their critical infrastructure folks, and start to deliver. National Weather Service flood inundation data layers through GeoCollaborate to show where inundation could happen should they get certain floods, and then where that critical infrastructure is and how it could be threatened and then perhaps protected. So it's a way to get these layers from the states that they've created in their GIS systems to combine with forecast layers from the National Weather Service being delivered from the National Weather Service and pulling that all together. So it's a way that you're really putting your GIS infrastructure to work. All the investment that's been made in your GIS infrastructure is definitely worth it. And like Chris McIntosh likes to say, you probably have all this capability already, except for the real-time sharing part that GeoCollaborate brings to the table. And so, like Tom mentioned, you can access and share through the SISE secure data layers that are only shared with those that are authorized to share through the SISE. And then you have control of that on-off switch.
Very good. Thank you, Dave. I'm gonna switch back to our screen here just a second. Does anyone else have any other questions? If you just put them in the chat, we'll get them. Let's see, I don't have any questions in the question area, but maybe have some in the chat. We got a couple minutes. I think the nice part about the relationship with NASA and NOAA is that dashboard didn't exist prior to our relationship with Dave. The Fleet Response Working Group said, hey, we need a dashboard we can monitor and watch every day. So we gave Dave a letter of request. He took it back to his federal sponsors. And I don't think that took very long, Dave. I think within a week, we had a working dashboard, and we've been customizing that ever since.
Yeah, and the great thing about that, Tom, is that since we do have those relationships with NASA and NOAA and other agencies, we can test data sets through the SISE with you who are watching. And so if you're in Oklahoma, Kansas, New England, Florida, Washington State, we can pull in NASA and NOAA data sets and ask you if you think they're helpful. If they're helpful to your decision-making environment, or you have feedback that you want to say, hey, it'd be nice if you did it this way, or it'd be nice if you did it that way, we can take that information and deliver it right back into that federal agency so they can tweak the products and make them more useful. And that's no cost to you at all to make that input into those federal agencies. It's kind of like your tax dollars at work.
Love that. Love that part. Very good. Okay, so no more questions here. So we're going to, our next session starts at 1:15. You get about 4 minutes to take a break. Again, there are 3 consecutive sessions running. And before I forget, Dave, thank you for preparing and sharing this. And thanks to our federal sponsors that have been part of that. So if you want to change links here, the session's coming up at 1:15. You can go to hc2021.com. We'll leave this up for now, take a break here, and we'll see you right back here in about 4 minutes.